The first shot split the desert silence. It wasn't loud, not really, not for those who knew the sound of rifles, bullets, and broken echoes in war. But for the young soldiers on the ridge that day, it was enough to silence their laughter. Because the woman they had mocked, even the one they called too small, too soft, and too slow, had just done something none of them could. Her name was Lieutenant Kara Hayes, the only female sniper in her Navy SEAL unit. When she first arrived at the forward base, half the platoon didn't even try to hide their smirks. SEAL sniper? She looks like she should be running a yoga class. Hope the enemy commander dies laughing when he sees her. They didn't know that Kara had spent years proving herself, not by being louder, or tougher, or meaner, but by being relentless. She out-trained, out-studied, and out-focused everyone in her path. Still, the laughter stung. She carried it quietly, storing it somewhere deep where it fueled her instead of burning her out. Her chance to silence the doubt came faster than anyone expected. The unit was tracking a ruthless enemy commander, a man infamous for raids that left villages burned and families shattered. Intelligence had him holed up across the valley with guards spread thick. The SEALs needed him alive. That meant precision, control. A sniper who could see more than just targets, as someone who could see the humanity beneath the chaos, who could calculate every heartbeat in the storm. The commander was too valuable to waste, and too dangerous to underestimate. Hayes, the captain said, his voice hard but carrying a sliver of respect. "You're up." The laughter stopped. From the ridge, Carrie lay prone, her cheek pressed against the scope. The desert sun burned hot, but inside her body was icy, steady, controlled, unshaken. The men who had mocked her shifted nervously behind her, waiting for the mistake they were sure she'd make. She exhaled, slow. One by one, her shots rang out. A guard fell, another dropped. Every bullet was measured, deliberate, like the tick of clock marking fate itself. Within minutes, the compound was surrounded. The SEAL team moved in without a single loss. And at the center of it all, trembling and cornered, was the man who had terrorized so many, the enemy commander himself. But then something happened no one expected. When the commander saw Kara step into the light, rifle still warm in her hands, he didn't curse her. He didn't spit, or resist. He dropped to his knees. His eyes hard, cold, ruthless, suddenly softened. "Please see broken bar," he said, his voice cracking in a language that needed no translation. "Don't shoot." Mercy. The men around her froze. The same soldiers who had laughed now stared, wide-eyed, at the scene unfolding before them. This was no monster begging for his life. This was a man stripped bare of hate, fear pouring out of him like water through broken stone. And Kara, with her finger resting near the trigger, felt something shift inside her. War teaches people to dehumanize, to see only enemies. But Kara had never lost sight of something deeper. She remembered the families this man had hurt, the soldiers he had killed, the devastation he had caused. But she also remembered the mothers who had begged her unit for safety, the children who had hidden behind rubble, eyes wide with fear. And now, kneeling in the dust, this man was someone's son too, someone's father, maybe someone who had chosen a dark path, but was still human in the end. Her men wanted blood. They wanted the easy end, the trigger pulled, the threat gone forever. But Kara's voice cut through the silence. "No one dies today." The SEALs hesitated, but the authority in her tone left no room for argument. They bound the commander's hands and led him away. And though the soldiers still whispered, still traded glances, they no longer laughed at her. Because in that moment, they saw what true strength looked like. It wasn't just the shot that hit its mark. It wasn't just the courage to stare down an enemy. It was the power to choose compassion when hate begged for violence. Weeks later, word spread. The commander, now in custody, had begun giving up critical intelligence. Villages were saved. Lives were spared. And it all traced back to that moment when Kara Hayes, the sniper no one believed in, decided that mercy was her deadliest weapon. Years later, one of the same men who had mocked her back then would tell the story to new recruits. "You want to know what it means to be a SEAL?" He'd say, "It's not about muscles, it's not about ego, it's about what Lieutenant Hayes showed us that real warriors don't just fight battles, they know when not to." And Kara herself, she never bragged, she never reminded the men who doubted her, she simply kept serving, kept protecting, and kept believing that the quiet strength inside her mattered more than any laughter or doubt thrown her way. Because in the end, it wasn't the enemy commander who had begged for mercy that defined her. It was that she gave it. The desert night was quiet, too quiet. Kara sat outside the tent, her rifle resting across her lap, the stars burning bright above. Around her, the comp slept in uneasy silence, but Kara couldn't sleep. The image of the commander, on his knees, begging for mercy, replayed in her mind over and over. She knew her decision had saved lives, but she also knew it wasn't the kind of choice that earned applause. Behind her, boots crunched against gravel. It was Sergeant Miller, the loudest of the men who had once mocked her. "You should have ended him," he said gruffly, sitting down beside her. Kara didn't look at him. "Killing's easy," she whispered. "Living with what you've done, a broken bar, that's harder." For the first time, Miller didn't argue. He just stared at the horizon, the silence between them speaking louder than any words. Days turned to weeks. The commander gave up safe house locations, supply chains, even escape tunnels. Raids that might have cost hundreds of lives ended with barely a shot fired. Villages that had once lived in terror began to breathe again. And with every mission, Kara noticed the shift. The men who had once doubted her now moved differently around her. They listened when she spoke. They followed her lead without question. Respect wasn't demanded, it was earned. And she had earned it not through force, but through conviction. But the story didn't end on the battlefield. Months later, Kara stood in a hospital in a war-torn village. A young boy no older than 10 gripped her hand, his tiny fingers trembling. His family had been saved in one of the raids that intelligence had made possible. Through an interpreter, the boy's mother spoke with tears in her eyes. "They told us it was the woman sniper who made this possible. We prayed for the soldiers, a broken bar, but God sent us you." Kara blinked hard, her throat tight. She wasn't used to being called an answer to prayer. The boy squeezed her hand tighter. "You didn't shoot him," he said softly. "Thank you." And in that moment, Kara realized something profound. Her decision hadn't just changed the war, it had changed lives she would never fully know, rippling outward in ways no bullet ever could. Later, as she returned home, Kara carried the memories with her, the laughter, the doubt, the mercy, and the transformation. Her story spread quietly through the military, whispered not as a tale of weakness, but of a strength far greater than violence. And for the young recruits who asked her advice, Kara always said the same thing: anyone can pull a trigger, but the real test of a warrior is knowing when not to.